see the government has to be borrowing $15 billion locally. $15 billion favor have to be borrowing. $15 billion locally favor have to borrow to maintain the economy. Them TD election and now them have look money for all it. All might
ball out. Whoa, yo, yo, yo. We need help, Jesus. Jamaica need help. Shift the parliament. Shift the election. Shift everything.
Jamaica. $15 billion them borrow locally. That means there's no money no day in the economy, mystery lady. Mystery lady, mystery lady. You remember? Julian Robinson said it last week. Where is the money to carry out the capital expenditure? Why you think you not see no spark on the road, a bill and bill? Una see no water project can't go around the island. Una see the school them not even have. Every ribbon stop cut because the money done, the money done, the money done, the money done. Money.
Help, help. We key out of the ladder.
We need your divine intervention. There is nothing in the country. No money. And when them done, they talk about choose Jamaica. They choosing the rotted.
Choose Jamaica for our prosperity. Choose Jamaica, this is what it really means. Choose Jamaica.
For a second, Jamaica. Now you see why not, you know, a good economist can do projections, don't it? Now you understand why Nigel run. Nigel run because he know that in the third term, if they got the third term, there will be no money to carry out because the kitty. Who stole the cookie from the cookie jar?
Jamaica people on a country in a problem. When me say on a country in a problem, me mean say on a country in a deep, deep problem. Remember me telling you say, them want to cut public sector workers. Them have too much. They want to balance the book. So they want to lay off public sector workers so they can balance the book. Now, the government of Jamaica and the finance minister are now borrowing $15 billion to help with the budget. $15 billion. And I saw them are going to do it and take it piece. You saw you say them going for another $20 billion because Jamaica is in a serious debt. Jamaica are in serious debt. And a lot of you are saying, oh, Andrew Holness is the best prime minister. Why do you think Andrew Holness couldn't afford to lose? These are the things that make him have to thief the election. Because so many things would have been exposed. The country wouldn't realize we are in a recession. The country crash. Now they're going to say that we should not be panic. We mustn't panic. Why we mustn't panic? Why the country must not panic? Why you not try to sweet we up? And I tell you, we say we not to panic. We have to be panic. Because no matter what we do, we cannot save the country from what's coming. And not just yesterday, or the day before yesterday, or last year, or year before last year, Jamaica facing this challenge. The only thing is that the government and the finance minister have been hiding it from us. Why do you think Elijah Clark have to run like a thief? He know exactly what's coming. Flavor Williams, that is why they put her there. Because them can blame her and say she don't know what she do. Literally, Flavor Williams don't even know her left foot from her right foot. No disrespect. So that is why they have her there as finance minister. So they can blame her. Remember, Andrew Wallace loved to play the blame game. But that is not the point. The point is that Jamaica, we in a problem. And when you listen to what's going on later on down inside of this video, you definitely I go shock. And then them are going to tell we not to be panic. Blessed evening to my viewers and my subscribers them. May hope everybody having a blessed and a wonderful evening. Now, my viewers and my subscribers, remember, in everything you do, always put God first. In any situation, just always remember to call upon God. Always remember to pray, because a prayer a day keep the devil away. Now, my viewers and my subscribers, we have a lot coming up inside this update, so you definitely don't want to miss none. So remember, watch the video until the end. And remember, like up the video, share up the video, and subscribe to the channel. Alright? Make we run the intro and come back. We soon forward. Welcome back to my viewers and my subscribers. Big up to all of my viewers. Big up to all of my subscribers. We continually support the channel and help the channel to grow. Now, people, remember to like and share this video and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed as yet. So now, my viewers and my subscribers, me see a thing go around where they're saying Camila Forbes, aka Ripe Mango, got arrested in the United States, but she's now out on bail. And the people, we don't know much information on this, so we're not going to talk much on it. You understand? But all I can say is that, right, Mongo, you have with support. You have with full support. You understand me? I say? You never kill nobody. You never rob nobody. And you definitely never take taxpayers' money. You understand? And enrich yourself. So, we the people of Jamaica love you. And we have your back until the end. Alright? You're not like these thieving politicians that are thieving from taxpayers and enrich themselves while the country are crashing our whole. So big up yourself. People, check out this audio.
Prominent PNP activist Kamala Forbes Thomas was detained in the U.S. state of North Carolina. According to police reports, Forbes, who's 45 years old, was detained for the misdemeanor charge of failing to appear in court. She was taken into custody by the Ranlo Police Department in Gaston County, North Carolina. Forbes Thomas was held on October 5, shortly after 5 p.m. She was released hours later on a $2,500 bond. Media reports in North Carolina say Forbes Thomas was booked on July 20 this year for larceny of property and receiving or possessing stolen goods. According to her social media, Forbes Thomas, who goes by the moniker Kamala the Ripe Mango, says she's a physiotherapist and social media consultant. She says she's also a trained emergency medical technician.
So Nasty Nationwide would have to be the first once it is something that have to do with anyone that support the People's National Party. That are them aim, that are them mission, to tear down the People's National Party. But all I can say to them, time is coming and it will catch up upon them. You understand? But Camila Forbes, Ripe Mango, hold firm. The Lord is with you. You understand? Yes. If you did kill somebody, you don't haul about over the internet. If you did rob somebody, you don't haul about it over the internet. If you did not certain type of wrongs like drugs and something there, it would have been all about over the internet. So clearly, it is not something that, So big up yourself, Camila Forbes. Hold strong. Now, my viewers and my subscribers, you have 2 PNP councillors and a former labor right councillors that got exposed by the Integrity Commission, right? And people, when it comes on to corruption, I am not a fan of it. I don't support corruption. So the PNP councillor that are recommended to be charged by the Integrity Commission is PNP Councillor Keisha Lewis. And the other person, which is a male, a former PNP councillor, is Rogie Curlew. Now, they are to face the court for failing to file their statutory declaration on time. So they haven't filed their statutory declaration for the past 3 years. Now, I would like to know why these two councillors from the People's National Party did not file their statutory declaration for the past 3 years. Now, Andrew Wallace's statutory declaration have not been certified by the Integrity Commission for the past 4 years now. They recommend Andrew Wallace to be charged, just like how they recommend these two PNP councillors to be charged. But Andrew Wallace are yet to be charged. And the Andrew Wallace case are a more serious case than these two councillors. So the question is, does the law only work for one set of people? Now, I am not picking up for these two councillors because I want Mark Golden to get to the bottom of this. And anybody to get fire because we can't afford to have no corruption in the party. Big and serious. So if these people are mixed up in corruption, Mark Golden should send them off. Get people who you can trust, because once you can't trust them with angle taxpayers' money, you can't trust them around you as well. So get to the bottom of this, Mark Jefferson Golden. Now back to Andrew Wallace. The question is, why is it that Andrew Wallace still cannot be charged? When he failed to have his statutory declaration certified for the past 4 years. The law only works for one set of people. The law only works for the PNP they may look like. Now, there is a male councillor that are recommended to be charged by the Integrity Commission from the Jamaican Labour Party as well. But that is not the one that I am interested in. I am interested in the 16 members of parliament that are under investigation for illicit enrichment. But I want to hear about the big dogs them, not the little small cats. So, Integrity Commission, just like how we push these reports to the public, we always push the council them report to the public. Why is it that the MPs them report always get all and pan? You know why you do it? Because of 2 PNP and 1 Labour right. That's why. That is the reason why. You don't want things look bad on PNP. So people can say, oh, I just 1 Labour right and 2 PNP. What happened to the 16 parliamentarians, including Juliet Holiness? What happened to them? We want to hear about FIDEM report. Alright? Put the council of them report aside until you clearly hear about the outstanding report them with the parliamentarian them. We no idiot. We no fool. We want to hear the right report them. Alright? But people state a thought on that down below in the comment section. And as usual, people, remember to like and share this video. Now, before we go over to the economy, we are crashing at Jamaica. The fact that the Jamaican Labour Party have run up and down a fire or a plan to fire public sector workers and a plan to borrow how much billions of dollars. Not billion Jamaican dollar, but billions in US dollar. Before we go to all of that, people, Dean Jackson Miller are going to speak about the constitutional reform and the reason why Mark Golding don't want to meet with Delroy Chuck, but Andrew Holness himself. And the reason why Andrew Holness are running away from Mark Golding, she's going to also state that, well, them need to scrap this thing because it definitely not going to work out. You understand? It not going to work out. The one of them have in place, it not going to work. So them need to scrap it. But people, Dean Jackson Miller will tell you the best. All right? So check this out.
Remember, the Prime Minister had said he wanted to work with the opposition to, get something going on constitutional reform. So the Prime Minister now reaches out to start the discussions about constitutional reform and says the opposition leader, Mark Golding, should meet with the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Delroy Chuck, to start those discussions. Mr. Golding said, no. The two are with meat. Now, a little context here. When the shadow cabinet was announced, we heard Mr. Golding had taken on the portfolio of constitutional affairs. So on the face of it, this would look like minister and shadow minister on a portfolio meeting together. Now, in the letter that the opposition leader wrote back to the Prime Minister, he said he accepts the only route to success in the constitutional reform effort is through authentic collaboration as demonstrated by former political leaders. For example, he said in opening the debate on the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms in 2010, then Prime Minister Bruce Golding outlined the imperative of partnering together in the reform process. Similarly, he said former Prime Minister P.J. Patterson wrote to you, that's Dr. Holness, and I, that's Mr. Golding, saying the solution to constitutional reform requires unity of purpose and action transcending partisan boundaries. And he says in moving from colonial status to political independence, there was constant interaction between Norman Manley and Alexander Bustamante, as there was between P.J. Patterson and Edward Seago during the constitutional reform undertakings in the 1990s. So he said, accordingly, is it two of them as the leaders of Jamaica's two major political parties who have to establish a basis for the partnership if the reform process is not to become another exercise in futility. So he says he was expecting an invitation to meet with the PM. Now, I interviewed on radio, on my radio program Beyond the Headlines on Radio Jamaica, opposition Member of Parliament Tony Hilton. Now, Mr. Hilton had represented the opposition on the Constitutional Reform Committee. And let me digress for a moment to say there are some words that we in the media like to pull out. So if anything goes wrong, if there's an accident of any kind, you're going to hear the words ill-fated. So let me say Mr. Hilton represented the opposition on the ill-fated Constitutional Reform Committee. And I'll soon tell you why I call it that. Jamaican people say, when I did not call it duppy. Well, I'm calling the Constitutional Reform Committee duppy. If it's not dead, it should be. We should take it around the back and put it out of its misery and put all of us out of our misery. But having said that, as I said, I spoke to Tony Hilton and asked him why the opposition leader said he wouldn't meet with the Justice Minister. I know some people looked at it and said, but Mr. Golding has assumed portfolio responsibility for constitutional affairs. He's been asked to meet with the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. What's the problem?
In one sense, I hope this is just a storm in a teacup because there is the need for a partnership. There is the need for the discussion to restart and for us to get on with the work that needs to be done. As the leader of opposition says, he embraced the offer, the position the Prime Minister announced at his inauguration, but felt that the discussion must be elevated and that for there to be clarity at the outset so that we don't have these fits and starts and these questions about the commitments of both sides to this process.
So here we are. Look, I don't think the opposition leader's position is unreasonable. He's saying, look, the leaders have to talk first, the leaders have to meet and agree on what they have to agree on and talk about what they're supposed to talk about. Then the others now can take the issue and run with it. You can't look at Mr. Golding as just any other shadow cabinet minister. He's a leader of the opposition. Duh. And it's actually kind of disrespectful to be telling him to meet with a cabinet minister, right? His taking on the constitutional affairs portfolio was, I think, a signal to say the opposition is taking this thing seriously. The position Mr. Golding is taking, by the way, is not unusual in either government or politics. So, for instance, if we're having a cabinet minister on either my radio or a TV program, they'll ask who will they be on with, and they will tell you point blank they won't come on with somebody they see as being very junior to them. Now, that happens all the time. Also, if you're planning a meeting and you want to make sure you can actually make progress, make some decisions, people like to meet with people of equal powerful status and rank, because, you know, on some issues it's a waste of time talking to people at lower ranks because they can't necessarily make certain types of decisions. So, I didn't think this was a great first move by the Prime Minister, and as I said, it kind of smacks of disrespect to the opposition leader. So let's see what happens now. Because whatever happens from here, they need to scratch that whole constitutional reform process and start again from scratch. Here's why I said that. The Constitutional Reform Committee was chaired by the then Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs, Marlene Malahoo Fort. You can't have a committee like that chaired by a politician. It has to be a well-respected, non-partisan local expert, and we have quite a few people around that could fit that bill. Now, the makeup of the committee was a big problem. Lawyer upon top of lawyer upon top of lawyer, as if nobody else could talk about constitutional reform. A constitution is supposed to set out what people want for the country, the people's aspirations for the country. Sure, lawyers have an important role to play, but they're not the only people who matter. It's not about lawyers talking legal talk like say nobody can understand what a constitution is or what they want it to do, right? Remember, if that is a starting point, the process is doomed from the start. Remember, you know, this is how we got the Constitution we now have, the 1962 Independence Constitution. A few men locked up in a room and decided what they wanted for the country. Constitutional scholar Simeon McIntosh called it a few men meeting in secret conclave. There weren't any public meetings, weren't any town halls, nothing like that. There were some submissions taken, but the kind of public conversation, educating the population about the issue, and then getting their views, that did not happen. We always have to remember that. The people, broadly speaking, were locked out of the making of the 1962 Constitution, and we have to make sure that does not happen again. I'm not saying this latest attempt at constitutional reform was as bad as what happened in 1962. It wasn't, but neither was it as inclusive as it should have been, and that was said right from the start, and they never pay people no mind. So the church was saying, what about them? And by the way, you cannot have one representative who is supposed to represent the church on very controversial issues, because the church is a very broad umbrella that covers and captures a wide variety of views, especially when it comes on to controversial issues. Yeah, that civil society rep, where civil society say never represent them. So yeah, whole heap of problems in the makeup of the committee right from the get-go. 3, they announced a decision on what the local head of state would look like even before there had been one comment from the public on this.
We will be abolishing the constitutional monarchy as our form of government, and we will be removing the British monarch from our government. When that is done, it's to be replaced by a formal head of state for the Republic of Jamaica, a president. So let me state that again. Once we have abolished the monarchy from our makeup, the makeup of our form of government, it will be replaced by the office of President of the Republic of Jamaica. And the President of the Republic of Jamaica is to be a separate office from the head. The President of the Republic of Jamaica will be the formal head of state of the Republic of Jamaica, separate from the head of government of the Republic of Jamaica, President and Prime Minister. President as head of state, Prime Minister as head of government.
That was the single biggest problem, because it made it look as if everything that happened after that was a waste of time, as if they had already made up their mind what they wanted, what the conclusion was going to be, and all the so-called consultation after that couldn't help but look like a face card to cover up a decision that had already been made. Number 4. The refusal, absolute refusal to hold public meetings that people could watch live, say for instance on YouTube, how we had to fight to get minutes of the meetings, and by the way, minutes would not have been as important if we had been able to watch live. The response when people asked for live coverage was that people wanted to speak freely without necessarily having to censor themselves. Look, the nature of these committee meetings means that we need to be able to hear everything that was being said. So the refusal to have the public watch these meetings live was another big no-no. 5. The town halls, the public meetings, when they were held, they were badly planned, they were badly executed. Just leave it at that. Look, I'm not even going to go any further, all right? What's done is done, but let's make sure it is done. Let's start over and do it again properly. Now, I'm not saying that, for instance, the report that came out of the Constitutional Reform Committee should be thrown in the trash. That's not what I'm saying. There's a lot of useful information in there that can help to inform future discussions. But we do need to have those future discussions, all right? The process itself has to start over. So what do you think? Comment below, all right? Remember, keep...
Now, this is one of the reasons why I say the Jamaican people really a joke, because at the end of the day, we should be involved in everything about that constitutional reform going forward. Then again, Jamaica no need to go republic, because if we cannot trust these politicians already, right? When we go republic and we don't have nobody to protect we. Remember, I the king of shield we, you know. And the king of shield we, you know. That is why you see certain things cannot happen, you know. But if we don't have nobody to shield we, how it a go? How it a go? What if we buck up on another prime minister like Andrew Wallace? What a go happen to us, the Jamaican people? So, me no agree for Jamaican become republic. You understand? And if they plan to go forward with that, then the country should have a big say in all of it. You understand? Now the Jamaican Labour Party continue to tell us not to worry, not to have any fear, not to panic, while the economy a crash, while Jamaica a drop on its face. People, I have a audio to play for you guys where they are begging us not to panic. But before I play that audio, I want you to check out this video where you will get some very important information from. All right, this video is from Marvin the Beast. So check it out before we go to the video with Flavor Williams.
Economy good. I do not even know that one. I do not even know what I'm going. We can't tell them. But we can't stay there. Eh? Alright. You see by now, and December, you see the next 11 weeks, the 11 weeks from now, by now at the end of December, the level of chaos that will be seen globally is going to be unprecedented. The level of chaos is going to be unprecedented. 3 times last week, they pumped money to save it. Thank you, Jamview News. 3 times last week, Bank of Jamaica pumped money to save the dollar from being devalued. But gear joke, them going to run out of money. And you're going to be seeing what's happening. You're going to see what happens after that. You're going to see what happens after that. You see, when you hear about company news, when you stop crash out online, it not look safe. 1.93 million US dollar to keep the dollar stable. Yeah, man. You think this is not yet? It doesn't not yet, man. At some point, you're going to run out of money. You know what is the sad part about it? Marvin, nobody no want up here, so, you know, nobody no want here up here, so, you know. 530 plus million it reach. Bun them Jaja. Just to save $1, it's costing Bank of Jamaica $2 million to save $2 million to save $1. So it don't look bad. But they can't keep doing it. Alright? Somebody said Japan is also trying to save it, and the economy is in shambles. Yep. As a matter of fact, here we're going to Google right now. I'm glad to hear that. But Japan. Japan is the largest holder of America's debt. Japan is the largest holder or buyer of US debt. Japan. Yeah? So if America is going to move their money into crypto, you think that Japan is going to sit down and hold a money that is going to drastically be devalued? Huh? Somebody said, I thought it was China. No, it's not China. China has been selling. Oh, by the way, I like when my students them research.
Here on the front page, the country's fiscal commissioner Courtney Williams says there's no need to panic about the country's tax shortfall at the end of the last fiscal year. Williams says there's been an uptick in revenue collections over the last few months, which should go some way to offsetting the shortfall.
This is not a situation to panic, right? So there was a revenue shortfall in the last quarter of 24-25, just about $14 billion. And there was also a shortfall of a smaller magnitude, just about $1.5 billion in the first quarter of this fiscal year. Now, if you're going to have a shortfall, it's better to have that shortfall early in the year so that the government can take corrective action to actually bring things back on track. So within that context, I'm saying it's not a situation to panic at this time, but it's something that's worthy of looking deeply at it.
Courtney Williams, in its latest statement on fiscal performance, the Independent Fiscal Commission, the IFC, flagged a $14 billion tax shortfall at the end of the last fiscal year. This resulted in an overstating of the revenue base for 2025-26. The IFC cautioned that additional revenue may be needed to meet budgeted targets.
Williams says there's been a 6% improvement in revenue collection since the period covered by the report, but he warns that without adjustments to expenditure at minimum, a 9% rise in revenues is required. It's the kind of expansion in revenue collection that has rarely been seen in Jamaica's history.
For the period September through March of next year when the fiscal year ends, the revenue collection, tax revenue would have to increase by about 9.5%. And we have not seen that level of increase for the past 3 or so years. In fact, when we look at the past 10 years, excluding the COVID period, and I want to exclude that period because it was extraordinary, it would have been only three years where we saw tax revenue increasing by over 9% in the September to March period. So for most of those years, tax revenue did not increase by as much as the 9.5%, which is what would be required over the 7-month period from September through to March for it to come in line with target. So there's still a concern that the target for the revenue could still be missed.
That's Courtney Williams, the country's fiscal commissioner. Well, to discuss this further, we're joined by the Minister of Finance and Public Service, Favour Williams. Good morning, Minister Williams.
Hi, good morning.
Minister, the information provided by the Fiscal Commissioner might be a bit out of date. What is the latest from the Ministry of Finance in terms of our revenue targets?
Sure. When we look at the April to August of this fiscal year, tax revenues are ahead by some $7.6 billion, ahead of our projections. So we're making up ground.
So is there an expectation that you will meet the revenue targets come the end of the fiscal year? And would you be able to meet those revenue targets without cutting anything in terms of expenditure?
So we are expecting to meet the targets. We're expecting, obviously we are working to ensure that we do. Our major revenue collection agents are Tax Administration Jamaica, Customs, and obviously we also look to the public bodies for how well they are doing and what can be collected from them as well. We will continue to monitor the numbers as we go along.
So, Minister, tell us, you said to Siobhan earlier that you believe that you'll be on target end of fiscal year. But what if we are not? What happens then?
We look at the projects to see where they are relative to expectation, relative to where entities say they would be. So we know projects that are lagging, projects that are ahead, projects that are, just on target. There's a monitoring that goes on that helps us to pull the levers, if you will, in terms of all the various projects out there. So if a project is not going as well as it should and funds are allocated to that project, then you may pull back relative to where the project is, and that could be allocated to something else that requires some funding. So there is active, very active monitoring of all the projects, the procurement, all of that across the government to see where we are, to ensure that when we report at the end of the fiscal year that the targets, the important targets that we have to meet, that those will be met.
So in other words, Minister, projects that are lagging behind or seem to have some difficulties, monies could be reallocated from those to make up for revenue shortfall.
Well, you can reallocate from those to others if others are ahead of their target. That's the example that I'm using here now. But what I want to convey is that the government's budget is actively monitored relative to targets, so that we do not miss the important ones already. If we look at the debt to GDP, we are 2 years ahead of their target. That's the example that I'm using here now. But what I want to convey is that the government's budget is actively monitored relative to targets, so that we do not miss the important ones already. If we look at the debt to GDP, we are 2 years ahead of where we said we would be. We monitor the fiscal balance very closely because we have to ensure that we have a primary balance that's at least 3% or so of GDP. But as we move forward now, we are going to have to recalibrate because we're entering into a new period where we will have met the important target of the debt to GDP. So we have to begin to set new targets for the next 3 to 5 years.